Thank you all so very much for getting up a Tuesday afternoon right after a holiday. I know in this business we don't really take holidays, but observation aside. We're fortunate enough to be here today with three phenomenal minds in our field. Shawn Mingus representing the mortgage industry, and John Fridlington and Madeline Van Ert, also with SPAR, representing the government relations side of it. I'm going to turn it over to them shortly, but just a couple things, just housekeeping on NAGLREP. For those of you who are members, thank you. We appreciate you. There's a lot of new faces in the crowd. I've done heavy recruiting lately, so you know who you are. Thank you guys. Obviously, our sponsorship today, U.S. Bank, brought us this amazing luncheon, Panera. Hopefully, everyone found something that appeals to their taste. Just a couple things that we have coming up on the agenda as far as NAGLREP is concerned. In April, we have the Policy Summit out in Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've gone to HUD's website lately, but if you go to the Fair and Equal Protection page that the Obama administration had up, it is now a 401 unavailable. I think anyhow the 45th administration crashed the site. So in doing that, they also repealed a lot of fair and equal protections for the LGBT population under Dr. Ben Carson. This policy summit is aimed at getting face-to-face with the Congressional LGBT Caucus as well as policymakers. The folks that are going to have an opportunity to meet with their state officials, be it Senate and Congress, to hopefully try and convene a message on why lobbying for those rights and equal protection is so important. So again, those dates, April 10th to the 11th out in DC. It's pretty cheap. I think it's $160 to attend the session. It's a one-day session. It starts at 8 a.m. and then obviously travel and expenses are on you individually. Our second big headliner, we're going back to Palm Springs. This will be the third year in a row, I believe the sixth conference. This is a national conference, so we're just shy of 2,200 members right now. I think if you recall at the end of last year, so just a couple months ago, we were boasting almost 2,100. So as of this month, we're just shy of 2,200 nationwide. It's a great opportunity for folks in the industry to get together, compare notes, talk about best practices, see what's working in different parts of the state. I know some of you are licensed in various states that others are not. Some lenders are licensed in all 50, some are licensed in 10. It's a great way to really network your resources. So if you have a client that's in Minnesota and wants to buy a property down in Florida, you know where to send them, and you know that that person's going to have a good experience. Aside from that, it's in Palm Springs in October, and they make really good drinks. But it really is a great opportunity. A ton of industry specialists are going to be down there this year. I don't know that they've announced the full lineup, but we always have someone from the HRC, Human Rights Campaign Executive Board, down there speaking. I think President of the NGLCC is going to be there this year speaking. Some other folks. And obviously, we're pretty heavy on congressional delegates that show up as well. So once again, just kind of the run of show for the day. I'm going to have Shawn Mingus actually open us up. Shawn's got another obligation and was good enough to clear his schedule to be here, so we definitely appreciate that. So with that, Shawn, I'll give you the floor. Thank you. Yes. Just click next.
Oh. All right. So as of Saturday, I've been with U.S. Bank for 10 years. We have 5 core values, and one of them in particular is we draw strength from diversity. So U.S. Bank not only leads here with our words, but our actions, and we feel that that makes us a stronger, more agile organization due to that core value. So I want to thank NAGLREP for inviting me here today and an opportunity to be a sponsor. I applaud you guys for what you're doing, fighting ignorance, intolerance, and discrimination. I'll share with you, I had lunch with a friend of mine I haven't seen in 18 years. I remember him back in 17 years, back in 2002, as a realtor, driving a fast BMW and selling a lot of homes. I think he was selling 50 homes a year at the time. And we lost touch. He got out of the business. He's now an ordained pastor. So as we're having coffee, he handed me his card to invite me to his parish or his church, and I asked him, "Are you a fire and brimstone kind of a pastor?" And he immediately brought up gay marriage as something that he was opposed to, and went on to say that he believes that being gay is a choice. Well, we agreed to disagree at that moment and kindly ended our conversation, but I share with you what you're doing is relevant, as you all know better than I ever could. So thank you again for the opportunity to come here today. I was asked to touch on the state of the mortgage industry, 26 years in the mortgage business. So I'll share with you a presentation that I have given to roughly 1,000 loan officers. I have the distinct honor of presenting to all of U.S. Bank home mortgages new hires across the country. They come in for training for a week, and I get them Monday morning at 9 a.m. I'm the first face they see, and many of them are coming from all over the country, California, Texas, Florida, and imagine a few weeks ago when we had feet of snow coming down and 30 below. The look in their eyes, but the topic of my presentation is kind of a doom and gloom, tough times ahead. But by the time we were done in that hour, they were truly inspired, because we have a choice when we face tough times. And I'll share with you kind of the premise of this. The industry is facing tough times. It's been written that the mortgage industry potentially could face its toughest year in my 26 years. And that includes the rollout of Dodd-Frank, which is the largest financial reform since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1929. I've seen a lot in my career. So you might ask yourself then, what are the challenges that we face, both mortgage and real estate, in 2019? I would ask you, what challenges do we face? It's on your mind. What are we lacking? Inventory. What are we potentially facing with inflation and job growth? Higher interest rates. It's not a good combination. There's a lot going on. As lenders, we're also facing something called margin compression. Can they describe to me or explain what that means? We're making less money per mortgage. It's the gouging out there. It's the lenders that are literally so desperate that they're lowering their rate to compete. So that is causing many mortgage companies to go, it happens in economic cycles. There's mergers and acquisitions and things going on. But there's a lot going on in the loan officer's head and realtor's heads. How many realtors do we have in the room here? How many lenders do we have? So a few. It's potentially a tough market. There's some other things that are at play here. The online lenders and online value proposition is getting better at their value proposition. That's eating into our market share. It's probably eating into some of your market share as well. Technology is here to stay, and we're only seeing the beginning of it. So that plays in our heads too. Are we going to be around? Are loan officers going to be relevant 10 years from now? I believe they are. If they deliver value and they have the relationship, I don't think a computer can be empathetic towards a human being. I just don't think it can, maybe in our lifetime. But that empathy is a big portion of what we do, right? We're helping people in a very significant, very meaningful way. So these play in the loan officer's heads. And then I asked the question, and I've asked it, and it stops everybody from laughing about all the issues, to what if your competition is better than you? Everyone gets quiet. How does that feel? Your competitor is outselling you. They're smarter than you. They're a step ahead of you. That's one of our other core values, is we stay a step ahead. What if your competition prepared better for 2019 than you did? And their eyes get this big. Oh, it's not possible. I'm the best. We all think we're the best. And what we're telling our people, if you were good in 2018, you need to be great in 2019 to thrive and survive. So yeah, there's tough times ahead. But Ernest reminded me a few months ago, he's sitting in the back of the room here, that when we were talking about the doom and gloom in the mortgage industry, and he threw this quote out. It's not his quote, but I'll give him credit. He said, tough times never last, but tough people do. And to me, that was an inspiring moment, because we are facing tough times. Lack of inventory, sales down. Overall mortgage volume is expected to be down, so everybody in the room is facing a potential pay decrease. So there's these challenges, but tough people last through tough times, and tough times don't last forever. And the fact is, I have a chart to prove it, and it's really hard to see, but this is a combination of a year, total mortgage volume, purchase and refi, and interest rate. Really 5 data points that are constantly moving. Can anybody tell me what was significant about 1992 in the mortgage business? I shared with you earlier, It's the year I got in the business. That's what's significant. So I got into the business in 1992, fresh out of college. I looked like I was 15. My wife and I were dating at the time and lived in an apartment, didn't even own a home, and I was out calling on realtors. 26 years later, I'm still here today. I made my business developing partnerships, even though I looked like I was 15, with folks like you. But what I didn't realize is the first 3 years of my career were the toughest times I was going to face. It was a downward spiral in terms of, the purchase production it was kind of flat, but the refinance business fell off the map. Before the year I got the business refinances, your loan officer probably never called you because they were so busy doing refi business. If you were in the business at that time, I know you were. You got it in 91. So I faced 3 years of tough years, and I didn't know any better. It was actually a gift. That gift, like anything in life, when we're challenged, makes us stronger. Under that stress, I rose to the occasion. Who in here thinks they're tough? Raise your hand if you think you're tough. Who in here is commissioned? Self-employed, 1099? Been doing it more than a couple of years? I'm here to tell you, if you lived through that cycle, you're tough. The mental toughness it requires to be self-employed, to be commissioned. There is no salary, there is no security blanket. We eat what we kill. We wake up every day and we go out and we build relationships and we serve people and we get compensated handsomely for it. So it is tough in this business just in general. But then when you have the cyclical highs and lows, interest rates go from 8.3% down to 3.66% in 2012. What does that do to our economy? It drives us like this. And that's just the way the economy is. It requires a mental toughness to see the highs and the lows and kind of even it all out and make sure that you save for the lows and don't spend in the highs. These are all things that you learn. I've made all those mistakes. Make as much money as you spend because you think it's never going to end. And then when it ends, it's like, what do you do? So that was a few years ago. We learned from those mistakes. So then as the market exploded in 1995 to 1998, roughly around 2000, we had a growth in purchase market. Purchase business went from 500 billion to 1.5 trillion in purchase. And refinance business doubled that. There was a $3 trillion market in 2000 $3 trillion market in 2005. But before that, we had a little bit of a crash. What happened in 2000? We had the Y2K bubble. Everybody remember that? How that affected everybody just locked themselves up in their home with water and extra gasoline for months. And then when that didn't happen, we had all that leftover water and gasoline and food in our basement. But it caused the market to halt, and then it just exploded, boom times, until 2005, 2006, what happened? It's the year I bought a home in 2005. Worst timing in real estate ever. Paid top of the market. I'm horrible at timing when it comes to real estate. Don't ask my advice. But then we faced some really tough times with the financial collapse, the Great Recession, and the rollout of Dodd-Frank, the largest financial reform since the creation of the Federal Reserve. It got to a point where you guys were happy that we could even close a loan. In my day, if you missed a closing, you were fired, never to be used again. But during the financial collapse, just getting a borrower to the table, even if it was a week late, I found realtors were very understanding because of the situation that we went through with the financial collapse. It was really, really tough. Who survived through that time period? You're all tough. So, at the end of the day, tough times last, or never last, but tough people do. You're all here. And then we see the growth in the purchase market now is starting to pick up. Refinances are falling off, pretty much non-existent, but the purchase market is expected to continue to grow. This is mortgage volume, which you probably double or triple that would probably be real estate volume on a national basis. But in my math, this year, $1.6 trillion of new money will come in and out of bank stores and flow through the secondary market, end up on balance sheets. Probably $3-4 trillion in real estate. I don't know what that number is, but it's a lot. So there's lots of opportunity. There's boom times ahead. And of course, this is all dependent upon an interest rate of around 5.1%. So who knows? This is the MBA's forecast. Tough times never last. Tough people do. So that's my message to loan officers. It's between your ears. And if you were good in 2018, you have to be great in 2019. Because the opportunity then is to help people in a meaningful way, to be a part of this multi-trillion-dollar market, and more importantly, help people with the American dream. And I know it's a cliche, but at the basis of homes, which is what we're talking about, what does it mean? A home stands for our shelter. It's the refuge from the storm. It's also the place where we probably create more memories than anywhere else. And at the top, it's the single largest investment, the single largest liability in most people's lives. And it's the difference between it reduces the wealth gap regardless of your ethnicity, your background, your direction in life, it reduces the wealth gap, gives everybody the same opportunity. Homeownership is a key feature. You guys have part of that. So that's the exciting part. So my challenge to loan officers and realtors is ignore the economic predictions, go out and sell, build relationships, take care of your clients, and do good things in your community, and support organizations like NAGLREP, and be there, and you'll be successful. That's my presentation.
Like he said, my name is Madeline Van Ert. I'm the Government Affairs Specialist here at SPAR. Briefly, for those of you that aren't familiar with my work, I work as a local lobbyist for the Realtors Association. Basically, I work with local governments, city council members, mayors, county commissioners, working on policy at the local level that will impact home sales in your community. So, full disclosure, I'm a little bit of a nerd about a lot of things, and I don't mean that in the pejorative sense of the word at all. I mean this very literally. I have a lot of useless knowledge about very strange things. Here's me at Harry Potter World. In my purse, I brought my own wand. I wasn't even the kind you get at Harry Potter World. This is me in Latin club in college. Yeah, I studied Latin. And this is me with one of my favorite Broadway artists, Karen Liu. I can talk about the Tonys for days. One thing I've not always been nerdy about is numbers and statistics. However, as I've gotten working into the housing market and working in housing policy, I've realized the true value of looking at these numbers, especially in the context of a long period of time, and able to sort of authoritatively paint a picture of what a lot of you already know instinctively by working in the market and talking to consumers on a daily basis. When taking this to people in local government, oftentimes they don't know this, right? Because they're not out in the field every single day like all of you are. So being able to really paint that picture with numbers can be really valuable. So just a brief overview of what I'm planning to cover today. Sort of by the numbers, the 2018 market overview, talking just sort of what we're seeing and how that looks over the past 15 years, how the trends have changed and how we look in relation to, as Shawn touched on briefly, sort of the bubble leading into the housing crisis and sort of how we fall in relation to that. Then just deep diving into a couple of really prominent trends we're seeing, housing shortage, and affordability questions, and sort of really looking at that from a statistics standpoint and where we are at, again, compared to that housing bubble. Then just focusing on some demographics and social trends, because that can always impact how the market is going as we see sort of aging populations and things like that. We'll sort of address how those issues are going to change the market in the future. Then just some 2019 predictions, obviously with the caveat that it's pretty hard to predict the future because there's a lot of uncertainty. So, starting with the 2018 market overview. Looking first at seller activity, we saw our third consecutive decrease with the moving down of about 0.3%. So obviously not a really dramatic downturn, but basically sellers are seeing rising prices, really quick market turnaround, but a lot of times we're seeing this sort of musical chairs because of all these things that sellers are waiting to put their house on the market to find the house that they want to kind of become available elsewhere because they know it's kind of an okay time. So again, we're seeing nowhere near kind of what we were seeing as far as new listings in sort of that market crisis. And so it really is sort of showing some stability. I mean, we're not really seeing these dramatic changes in seller activity. And so we did see that downturn this year, but as we move into the later half of the year, we actually see some pretty significant growth in relation to 2017, which is sort of signaling a turnaround moving into 2019. As far as buyer activity, we see a downturn at 3.4% less than 2017. But look at this in the context of everything else. We're still seeing that this is our 5th highest in the past 15 years. And so again, sort of signaling that same kind of stability and stable growth, although a little bit of hesitancy because of just that low inventory, that there just isn't as many purchases to be made. But we see there's high demand. So looking at days on the market is where we really start to see these unprecedented levels and the change from previous bubbles. So we're looking at 22 days on the market for the median. The average is about 48 right now. And that's about half what it was in 2012. And wow, 116 days on the market looking in sort of the middle of that crisis. 22 days on the market seems crazy for me. I'm picturing people like throwing their things in their bag and like throwing it over their shoulder and like hustling out the house. I can't imagine that kind of turnaround. Again, looking at unprecedented levels in median sales price, right? We're seeing our previous high in 2006, 230,000. We're all the way up to 265, about a 15% increase from our previous high. Looking at 2011, we've got like a 75% increase in median sales price. So looking at that, we see new construction, even more dramatic story here, right? Our previous high, looking about 260,000, where we're at now overall. Now median sales price for new construction is about $400,000. So also seeing we sort of dipped down in that crisis and then shot way past where we were at that previous bubble. But a really important piece of trying to understand sort of these changes in price is also looking at the price per square foot, right? So this is signaling, I don't care if it's, a big McMansion in the suburbs or somebody's like cute little townhome, what we're paying per square foot for these things. And so we see also, right, and like a new high at 141 per square foot. But when you look at it over time, like we did with that last trend line, what we see is a little bit different story, right? We see this previous high jumping all the way down in the crisis, and now only just now getting right back to where it was in that previous. Whereas with the so you remember, we dipped down and shot way past. So this is signaling that there's something else going on, right? I mean, it's not just simply demand per square foot. Something else is happening that's causing these median prices to sort of swell. So additionally, for sellers, we're seeing, for the first time, 100% of listing price. Over half of the people were receiving more than they were asking for originally listing their homes. Again, unprecedented level of 99.2 in 2004. And so, basically to recap, people are selling their homes, getting more than their asking price in a record amount of time at record high prices. So our anticipation is that why are people just like throwing these homes on the market, right? So our anticipation would be we'd have a bunch of houses being sold. But actually what we see with this inventory is we're not there, right? We had about 8,000 listed in December. And so when we combine this with sort of a strong demand, what we end up seeing is like competitive bidding, rising prices, can be frustrating for buyers, right? Especially at those entry-level homes level. So another way that we measure this sort of inventory is month supply, and this is sort of NAR's favorite thing to sort of evaluate where the market's at. Basically what this is it's new listings over pending sales, and basically what it's articulating is if we stopped listing homes right now, how long would it take for that supply that we have right now to run out? A healthy market, 6 months. We're looking at 1.7 in December. I think we're around 2 right now in January. So this is significantly in favor of sellers and a very low, once again, unprecedented level as far as month supply goes. Again, 8.3 month supply sort of in the height of the housing crisis. So sort of breaking this down sort of by price range, right? Because we were talking about these median sales prices being through the roof. So looking just at the breakdown of what's selling, right? These are closed sales. In 2018, we're seeing about half of those being between 200, 350, and about 1% being over 500,000. When we're looking at what's newly constructed and being listed, they're all kind of being listed at the same rate, right? We don't see that significant increase in the things that are in high demand, like the 200 entry-level houses, like I said. And so when we look at month supply by price of the home, we actually have a very healthy market for 500 plus, right? Everything else we're looking at anything under 200,000, 1.1, average around 2 right now in January. So is this because like houses are just more expensive right now? I mean, as we're saying also no, we've seen this huge jump in homes over 2,500 square feet, right? It's making up a significant portion of these homes that are being listed. And as we see, new construction is beginning to increase again as percentage of in their market share, right? So as we have an aging population, as it's getting harder for people to downsize, as we said, those entry-level homes, lower prices are harder for people to get. We see people moving less. Those previously owned homes aren't moving as quickly, so new construction becomes increasingly important. So additionally, in sort of filling in some of those lower end houses, we've got townhouse condo market share to look at. 2006, they were about 30%, and then it really has dropped off as far as production goes for townhouse and condo production, which would help to sort of fill in those gaps with the lower range pricing. And we see that it's sort of starting to come back. There's a tiny little uptick the past couple of years, I assume sort of in that hope. But yeah, we look, and they used to sort of follow the same pattern, and then sort of 2009, 2010 totally split off. And we see that what's being produced is single-family homes, not those townhouse and condos. So why is this? What is it about new construction that is making it difficult for them to keep up, right, with what the demand seems to be telling us that people want? So basically what we talk about sort of in the association world is lots, labor, lending, and lumber. So we have a shortage of lots, which is going to drive the price up, right? Shortage of labor, as all of you know, not as many people going into the trades. It's much more difficult to get people to actually construct these homes, right? Construction lending is tough. And then also lumber, so actually the materials used to build the home. So all of these things, when looking to plan what kind of house you're going to put down, if the prices of all of these are going up, they're each going to proportionally increase the price that you're going to list it for to make a profit. Also, we have the small r of regulation, super catchy, I know, 4 L's and the R. But basically when you're looking at things like we saw with the Supreme Court decision on Woodbury, things like impact fees, park dedication fees, and the building code, things like that are really going to drive up the price of the home. And so we see sort of all of these things playing together to sort of create this recipe for these higher priced homes. So just for example, we see with the lumber, this is sort of a good recent example, these black lines are every time a tariff has been imposed on Canadian lumber, and every time that happens we see this jump up, right? And so once again we see these sort of prices skyrocketing. And so all these things sort of interplay to sort of create this market that we're seeing right now and the shortage of homes and what people want. What NAR likes to use, a metric that they like to use to sort of look at the shortage is basically looking at single-family unit permits and total permits pulled in relation to new jobs that are created in any area. So what we see is actually Minneapolis-St. Paul is not, the worst of the nation. We actually are doing an okay job. We've got 1 permit pulled for every 4 jobs that are created in the Twin Cities area. Lucky us that we're not San Francisco, about 1 for every 13 jobs. And of course there are a lot of things that play into this, but we're seeing sort of these trends that those are the areas where we're seeing increased costs, lower supply, all of these things. So that's sort of the housing shortage by the numbers. Now looking just at affordability, because obviously with a very high median sales price, what we're going to see is some questions of affordability. But what's really interesting is to sort of look at this in the context, once again, of sort of the housing crisis bubble. Like, are we getting to that point? Because I think that's the question on a lot of people's minds. Is this crash sort of inevitable? So when you're buying a house, I don't know about all your clients, but most of the time people are just like slapping down the cash value of the home immediately. What they're making this decision based off of is this mortgage payment, right? The monthly payment, that's what they feel, that's what's coming out of their checkbook every month, and that's sort of what they're looking at when making this decision. So when we look at sort of the height of that lending, we're looking at people paying $1,600 a month for a $230,000 home. Now we have these new median high, right? But we're still not seeing those monthly payments going above that level, which is a really interesting consideration because that sort of starts to speak to that affordability. This is another way to sort of look at it. So here we sort of got it set so that it's crossing, which is at our current rate of 2.8, which is the ratio of the median family income or the median home price to median family income. So last time we saw this crest at the same level, same kind of housing bubble time where we start to see those affordability challenges and people buying those homes that are not necessarily within their range. So as we start to crest over this again, it's a really important thing to keep in mind, right? That we don't want to start, if we're forcing people to if people are just less and less able to buy their homes, we're going to run into problems. It's inevitable. This is that just demonstrated as a line graph, that same rate. Once again, we see sort of cresting in that same 2006, 2007 area, dipping down during the crisis, and now we're sneaking back up to that same level. So definitely something to be wary of. Another way to look at affordability is your percentage of your income pre-tax that you're putting towards your housing payment. Once again, same looking familiar shape, I'm sure, but we see sort of at the height of it was 24.8. Right now we're sitting at about 20. So sort of the name of the game right now is sort of that we're not there yet, right? We're not to that point where it's, breaking. But we're definitely getting there, and we're on our way, and if the trends continue sort of in that direction. Although, songs of praise for Minneapolis, we actually, relative to the rest of the country, are doing pretty well with this affordability question. If we look, we've got monthly housing payments that are below average, incomes that are way above, which puts our ratio second to last. So only surpassed by Indianapolis, which is about 16% that's going toward housing payment. We look at somewhere like Los Angeles. Okay, top 3 housing costs, bottom 10 for income, puts them about 60% of their income is going toward housing. Yeah, so, in some ways, something's working in Minneapolis, and, there are a lot of factors that differ from city to city, regulations and things like that, but 60% of your income is a tremendous amount, and so sort of all of us start moving in that direction. Not great. Housing Affordability Index, just another one, sort of measuring that, and we're seeing, again, the same kind of trend. Basically, this is saying that if you're making the median family income, what percentage of the cost necessary to buy the median family house you're sitting at. So basically, as this number goes down, it's less and less people that have enough money to afford the median priced house. So we're sitting at about 134% if you're making the median income for the area. You have 134% of what's necessary to buy that median priced house. And obviously, right, once again, trending downward toward possibly, not great zone. So now moving into some of the demographics and social trends that we're seeing in the market. For home buyers, this is just sort of a profile of what the average buyer looked like in 2018. First-time buyers were 33%, typical buyer was 46 years old, making $91,600 a year. 12% were purchasing a multi-generational home, which is again one of those solutions we're seeing to sort of those entry-level homes just not being affordable or not being there. Taking care of aging parents, children moving back home after college, unable to sort of afford the home. And then home sellers, typical home seller, $55,000, $98,000 a year. Moving because their house is too small, want to be close to their family and friends. Job relocation, I'm sure you all know that. Very familiar with those kind of reasons. Lived in their home for 9 years before selling, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a bit. And 91% worked with a real estate agent, so bully for you. Home characteristics, detached single-family homes, 15 miles away from where they were living previously. About 1,900 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1991, just kind of your average sale. Environmental features, heating and cooling, you all are knowing this. So some of those trends that we're seeing socially, households that are moving. We have about 11% of households that have moved in the past year. 1960, that was about double that, 20%. So we're seeing that people are just moving less frequently. Here we're looking at the same thing, just like tenure in home. Obviously, during some of those housing crises and things like that, it just made sense to hold on if you could to your house. So that obviously impacted it, but we see that we're staying around 9 and 10 years as an average, or median, instead of 5, which we were seeing in the 80s, right? So people are just staying in their homes longer, moving less often. Looking at demographics, we've got how many adults are in the home. So blue, obviously a disproportionate amount, married couples selling or the ones living in the house. Although we see as the population starts to age, single females kind of taking a little uptick and married couples taking a downtick. Women tend to outlive men, and so we have a lot of widows sort of in this area that are seeing that. But otherwise, pretty stable with single men, unmarried couples. But when we start to look at buyers is where we see that uptick even more dramatically. Married couples are buying less and less. We see single females, single males, and unmarried couples all kind of making a little dip up at the end. Buyers with children. People are having kids later, less, and so we sort of see this no children in home moving upward, children under 18 sort of trending downward recently. So looking into 2019, this is sort of what we released with our press conference, joint press conference with MAR. Obviously, there are a whole lot of uncertainties with this. Things like politics, trade wars, any sort of tariffs, things like that. And as you all know, politics is uncertain right now, and so it makes it really hard to sort of evaluate. But basically, name of the game is pretty stable growth, if not maybe a slight downturn, but definitely nothing dramatic in any of these categories. But this is also with the assumption that significant inventory is going to be added, that people are going to start to see these trends and add homes, because that's sort of what the market is crying out for right now. Bubble 2.0, right? This is everybody's question right now. We're seeing these high prices, we're seeing this high demand. Is this just the same thing going to trend in the exact same way once again? So actually significantly different now than we were seeing sort of in 2006, 2007, and leading up to it. Like we saw with affordability, the payments are still below where bubble levels were. We're not cresting above those levels as far as monthly payments go. There's not a bubble in lending. We're not seeing that people with low credit scores are making a disproportionate amount of loans, taking a lot of those out, still pretty evenly since then. Also, when you're just talking to consumers, people don't have that over-exuberant, I'm buying this house way well beyond my means and I'm super pumped about it. People are still, at least from what I've heard, pretty cautious when it comes to buying the house. They want to make sure that they're making, rational decisions. And most importantly, the speculative construction was really what sort of tanked that housing crisis, because we had all of a sudden they were just building based on this high demand, and then all of a sudden when it fell off, there was nobody to buy these houses. And actually, like we saw, construction is lagging way behind what people want. And so it's unlikely that we're going to see that similar absolute crash as we move forward. This is a graphic from John Burns Real Estate Consulting, which I think articulates that really well. Basically, we have little things called hiccups, where you'll see like a little hiccup, it takes a little downturn, and these areas where we have like really significant housing problems with that same thing, irrational buyers, bad lending, things like that, that we just aren't seeing right now. So that just means that there are obviously economic risks that are going to be playing a part in the housing market, but these little hiccups is all that those really impact. Might be a slight downturn, but isn't going to be just like a tanking of the economy. So basically just what now? I mean, basically taking sort of what we can see in this moving forward. Ideally, people will make some higher wages, if we can. I mean, basically one or two of these things, but best both, right? We have higher wages, so people are more easily able to attain houses. Also, more new construction, especially in that affordable range. And obviously, John's going to be able to talk a little bit more about some of those policies and things that will help us sort of counteract some of these trends we're seeing in the market. Thank you.